The quietness of that night was shattered by frantic screams. "Mrs. Bella, please, come quick! Help!" The voice sliced through the stillness, a panicked edge to it that instantly jolted Bella from sleep. It was Alex, Emma's best friend, who was spending the night with them. Terror in her voice was unmistakable. And before Bella could fully process the situation, the deep, fierce barks of Max, their pit bull, echoed through the house. Bella's heart pounded as she bolted upright, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She rushed out of her bedroom and into the dimly lit hallway, only to find Alex standing there, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" Bella asked, her voice thick with worry. "It's Emma," Alex choked out between sobs. "She's hurt." Bella felt the floor fall from beneath her. Without a second thought, she sprinted down the hallway, the adrenaline pushing her feet forward faster than her mind could comprehend. When she reached Emma's room, what she saw left her frozen in place. Emma was sitting on the edge of her bed, clutching her nightgown, her face streaked with tears. Her white gown, once pristine, was stained with a deep red spot that seemed to be spreading from her lap. The sight of her baby girl, like that, broken, bleeding and sobbing, twisted Bella's stomach into knots. But what was worse, what sent a chill racing up her spine, was Max. The dog, normally calm and protective, was growling low, his eyes gleaming with a strange, menacing light. Before Bella could make sense of it, he lunged at her. The sudden aggression from the dog she had trusted all these years was like a slap in the face. "Max, no!" she screamed, her hand darting for the light switch. The second the light flooded the room, Max froze, as if suddenly unsure of himself. His growl faded, replaced by a soft whine, and within moments he was wagging his tail, backing out of the room as though nothing had happened. Bella stood there, trembling, staring at the retreating figure of her dog, her mind racing in a dozen directions. What had just happened? "Emma, my love, what happened?" she whispered, rushing to her daughter's side. Her hands shook as she tried to cradle Emma's tear-soaked face. But Emma wouldn't respond. She buried her face in her hands, her entire body shaking with sobs. Alex, standing by the door, looked equally shaken. "It was Max," she cried. He attacked her. I woke up and saw him. He was on top of her doing something awful. I tried to stop him, but he almost bit me." Her voice cracked with fear as the words tumbled out. Bella felt her knees go weak. This couldn't be happening. Her mind refused to process what Alex was saying. Max? The same Max who had been their protector for years. "No, that's not possible," Bella muttered under her breath, trying to deny the growing sense of dread crawling up her throat. But then the sight of Emma, her daughter, her everything, lying there in pain, made it undeniable. There was blood. It hurt. And Max was involved. Panic took hold. Bella knew she had to act fast, but going to the hospital would invite questions, gossip, things she wasn't ready to deal with. She needed to think clearly, to protect Emma first. "Come on," Bella said, her voice wavering as she gathered Emma into her arms. "We're going to see Dr. Tamey." She shot a glance at Alex. "Please don't say a word about this. Not to anyone. I need time to figure out what to do." Alex, still pale and shaking, nodded in agreement. "I promise," she whispered, eyes full of fear. As the three of them hurried into the night, Bella's mind raced. Whatever had just happened was only the beginning of something far darker, something she wasn't sure she was ready to face. Bella's mind was spinning, a chaotic mess of worry, fear, and disbelief. She couldn't let the world find out. The very thought of whispers, of prying eyes, turned her stomach. But she knew one thing for certain. Emma needed help, and she needed it now. No hospital, no questions. Just answers. An idea flashed in her mind, sharp and clear. "Sir, please," she said, her voice cracking. "Change direction. We're going somewhere else." She gave the cab driver the address of Dr. Tamey's private clinic. Tamey wasn't just any doctor, she was a trusted friend. If anyone could help them without the world finding out, it was her. The drive felt endless, every second thick with panic. When they finally arrived, Bella was on the verge of collapse. She pounded on the door, the force of her desperation behind every knock. Tamey opened the door, her face etched with concern the moment she saw her old friend's broken expression. "Bella, what's wrong?" Tamey asked, her voice gentle but urgent. "It's Emma. Something awful has happened." The words burst out of Bella, followed by sobs that she had been holding back for too long. Tamey didn't waste a second, pulling them both inside, quickly guiding Emma into an exam room. Bella stood by, trembling, as Tammy worked with a calm, practiced precision. Emma lay there quietly, staring at the ceiling, as though the pain had pulled her far away from the present. Bella's mouth felt dry, and every time she tried to speak, the words tangled on her tongue. She couldn't even explain what had happened. The horror of it all was too much to wrap her mind around. Tamey worked in silence, her movements careful but deliberate. After what felt like an eternity, she turned back to Bella. Her expression said everything before the words even left her lips. "Bella," Tamey began softly, "there's significant damage. Emma. She suffered a tear in her private area." She paused, searching for the right words, but the truth was brutal. "It's clear there was some kind of physical trauma." Bella's knees buckled, and for a moment she thought she might fall to the floor. The room spun around her, a heavy weight pressing against her chest, squeezing her breath from her lungs. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her baby, her little girl, had been violated, and the pain of it shattered Bella into 1,000 pieces. "What? What do we do?" Bella managed to whisper, her voice barely holding together. "No one can know about this. No one." Tamey's face remained steady, her voice firm but compassionate. "We'll be careful, Bella. But first, we need to make sure Emma is okay." She glanced at Emma, who was still lost in her own world of silent tears. "We'll take it step by step." That night, in the quiet of Tamey's small clinic, Bella wept as Tamey gently cleaned and treated Emma's wounds. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, the weight of what had happened pressing down on all of them. "It seems like an accident," Tamey whispered, trying to calm Bella, though her own voice wavered just slightly. "There's no need for this to get out." Bella nodded, but inside, she was far from calm. The idea that this could be brushed off as an accident left her cold, unsettled. She knew there was more beneath the surface, something darker lurking that neither of them had the courage to face just yet. Before they left, Tamey gave her one final piece of advice. "In the next few days, bring Emma in for blood tests. We need to make sure there's no infection or any disease, especially rabies, considering what you said about Max." Days passed. Bella took Emma to the lab, keeping her emotions bottled up tightly. The results came back, and Bella left them with Tamey to review. But it wasn't long before her phone rang, and she could feel the familiar dread creeping back in. "Tamey? Is something wrong?" Bella's voice trembled as she spoke. No. Tamey's voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. "Emma doesn't have any diseases, but I need you both to come back to the clinic. There's something I need to discuss with you in person." Bella didn't waste any time. That evening she and Emma returned to Tamey's clinic. While Emma played quietly in the waiting room, Tammy led Bella into her small office. The air felt thick, heavy with anticipation. "Please, Tammy, just tell me what's going on," Bella urged, her nerves frayed. Tammy met her eyes, her expression deadly serious. "Bella, the blood test didn't show any illness, but there was something else, something unusual. That's why I ran another test." She paused, swallowing hard. "I had to check for pregnancy." The words hung in the air, a sharp, bitter blow that left Bella speechless. Her heart dropped. "Pregnancy?" Bella gasped, the word barely audible as it slipped from her lips. Tammy moved closer, placing a comforting hand on Bella's shoulder as though bracing her for what she was about to hear next. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Bella, Emma is pregnant. Bella, after the incident with the dog, Emma is pregnant." The words hit Bella like a freight train. She felt the ground give way beneath her feet, the room spinning uncontrollably. Before she could even begin to process what she had just heard, her legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the floor in a faint. Tammy rushed to her side, trying to wake her, while Emma, completely oblivious to the storm raging around her, continued to play in the waiting room, unaware of the life-altering news that had just been delivered. Bella, a woman in her 40s, had been a widow for a few years now. Her husband had died unexpectedly, and since that day, everything about her life had changed. In the blink of an eye, she found herself alone, carrying the heavy burden of raising their daughter, Emma, all by herself. Before her husband's death, he had always handled the finances and made sure they never lacked for anything. But after he passed, the challenges piled up. Bella, who had once dreamed of being a graphic designer, had to put her aspirations aside. She dusted off her degree and started freelancing, working from home to stay close to Emma. The two of them moved into a smaller house, one they could afford on Bella's modest income. It wasn't just the physical space that shrank, though. Emma, who had once been full of light and curiosity, withdrew into herself after her father's death. She didn't want to go outside, didn't talk to anyone, and had no friends. Bella had tried time and time again to encourage Emma to play with the neighborhood kids, but nothing seemed to spark her interest. Until Alex showed up. The 15-year-old girl from down the street was different from the others. She had a way of getting through to Emma that no one else could. Slowly but surely, they became best friends. Emma finally had someone to confide in, someone to share secrets and late-night giggles with during their countless sleepovers. It was the first flicker of joy Bella had seen in her daughter in years. One night, as they were playing in Emma's room, the girls heard the sound of a dog howling outside. They peeked through the window and saw a large pit bull rummaging through the trash on the curb. "Oh, poor thing," Emma said, her voice soft and full of sympathy. "Let's give him something to eat." Without a second thought, the girls hurried downstairs and Emma offered the dog some leftovers. The pit bull, his tail wagging enthusiastically, trotted over to them. He was big, but his playful demeanor put Emma at ease. Before Alex could stop her, Emma had already coaxed the dog inside. "I'll call him Max," she said with a grin, running her hands over his muscular frame. Alex looked uneasy. "What if your mum gets mad?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "She won't find out," Emma said confidently. She was sure she could keep Max a secret. That night, the two girls hid Max in Emma's closet, thinking they had pulled off their plan without a hitch. But the next morning, Max's loud barks gave him away. Bella, drawn to the noise, came into Emma's room and opened the closet, her eyebrows shooting up in surprise when she found the dog sitting there, looking up at her with big, innocent eyes. "Emma, what is this dog doing here?" Bella exclaimed, her tone a mix of shock and confusion. "Mama, please," Emma cried, her eyes filling with tears. "Please let him stay. I promise I'll take care of him." The desperation in her voice tugged at Bella's heart. Even though Bella wasn't thrilled with the idea of having a dog, especially one that size, she eventually gave in. Emma's plea was too heartfelt to ignore. "All right," she relented, "but you have to make sure he doesn't belong to anyone else first, and you're responsible for him. Got it?" Emma, beaming with joy, nodded eagerly. And just like that, Max became part of their little family. When no one came forward to claim him, Max became a permanent member of their family. Despite being an adult dog from a breed known for its aggressive reputation, he was nothing but affectionate toward Emma and Alex. The two girls adored him, spending every afternoon playing with him in the yard. Yet, no matter how gentle Max appeared with the girls, Bella couldn't shake a lingering unease whenever she looked at him. Something always felt off, though she couldn't quite place what it was. That night, after the terrible revelation, Bella finally regained her composure, but the tears came almost immediately. Desperation clawed at her as she looked to Dr. Tammy, her trusted friend, and the only person who could help her through this nightmare. "How is this even possible? I don't understand." Bella's voice cracked as she wept. Tammy, keeping her voice calm despite the distressing circumstances, spoke with a gentle firmness. "Bella, these have to be two separate events. Some man must have done this to Emma." Bella shook her head vigorously, her whole body trembling. The idea was unthinkable. "No, that's impossible. Emma has barely left the house since her father passed. The only people she ever sees are me, Alex, and sometimes Alex's mother, always under my watch. She doesn't go to school. I homeschool her. We don't have visitors. No one ever comes here. There's no man in her life. No chance for this to have happened." Bella's voice was thin, barely holding together under the weight of the horror she was grappling with. Tammy fell silent, contemplating the details, her eyes heavy with unspoken concern. Neither woman wanted to voice the thought that lingered between them, but it was impossible to ignore. The only unusual thing that had happened was the incident with Max. "Bella," Tammy finally said, her tone steady but firm, "that's not possible. There are certain species that can interbreed, yes, but dogs and humans? That's biologically impossible. Max could not have made Emma pregnant." Bella nodded, but she wasn't reassured. The doubts continued to gnaw at her, carving out a pit of anxiety in her chest. If Max wasn't responsible, then who was? She had gone through every possibility, and no answer made sense. Nothing about this did. "What do we do now?" Bella asked, exhausted, her voice barely above a whisper. Tammy, her expression grave but determined, met Bella's eyes. "I'll dig deeper into this. I'll consult with some colleagues and make sure we're not overlooking anything. But don't worry, Bella. I'm here with you every step of the way." That night, Bella returned home with Emma, emotionally drained and unsure of how to face what lay ahead. As they reached the front door, Emma looked up at her mother with wide, worried eyes. "Mum, what's going on? Why are you so sad?" Emma's voice was soft, innocent, still untouched by the full horror of what had happened. Bella forced a smile, though her heart was heavy with fear and confusion. She gently stroked Emma's hair, trying to soothe both of their anxieties. "It's nothing, sweetheart. I'm just a little tired, that's all. Everything's going to be okay." Emma seemed to accept that answer, at least for the moment, and didn't press any further. But Bella couldn't escape the questions that swirled in her mind. The unknown haunted her, and the uncertainty followed her like a shadow, clinging to every quiet moment of the night. There had to be an explanation, something that would make sense of this nightmare. But no matter how hard she tried, Bella couldn't find it. A few days passed, and Emma slowly returned to her old self. She played in the yard with Alex, laughing like she used to, the innocence of her youth masking the trauma she had endured. Bella, however, could not move on so easily. The unease gnawed at her. Max was still tied up in the backyard, isolated from the family. Bella couldn't bear to take any more chances. The idea of letting him roam free again terrified her. "Mom, please," Emma begged her every day, tears welling in her eyes. "Let him go. He won't hurt me. I miss him." When no one came forward to claim him, Max became a permanent member of their family. Despite being an adult dog from a breed known for its aggressive reputation, he was nothing but affectionate toward Emma and Alex. The two girls adored him, spending every afternoon playing with him in the yard. Yet, no matter how gentle Max appeared with the girls, Bella couldn't shake a lingering unease whenever she looked at him. Something always felt off, though she couldn't quite place what it was. That night, after the terrible revelation, Bella finally regained her composure, but the tears came almost immediately. Desperation clawed at her as she looked to Dr. Tammy, her trusted friend and the only person who could help her through this nightmare. "How is this even possible? I don't understand." Bella's voice cracked as she wept. Tammy, keeping her voice calm despite the distressing circumstances, spoke with a gentle firmness. "Bella, these have to be two separate events. Some man must have done this to Emma." Bella shook her head vigorously, her whole body trembling. The idea was unthinkable. "No, that's impossible. Emma has barely left the house since her father passed. The only people she ever sees are me, Alex, and sometimes Alex's mother, always under my watch. She doesn't go to school. I homeschool her. We don't have visitors. No one ever comes here. There's no man in her life. No chance for this to have happened." Bella's voice was thin, barely holding together under the weight of the horror she was grappling with. Tammy fell silent, contemplating the details, her eyes heavy with unspoken concern. Neither woman wanted to voice the thought that lingered between them, but it was impossible to ignore. The only unusual thing that had happened was the incident with Max. "Bella," Tammy finally said, her tone steady but firm, "that's not possible. There are certain species that can interbreed, yes. But dogs and humans? That's biologically impossible. Max could not have made Emma pregnant." Bella nodded, but she wasn't reassured. The doubts continued to gnaw at her, carving out a pit of anxiety in her chest. If Max wasn't responsible, then who was? She had gone through every possibility, and no answer made sense. Nothing about this did. "What do we do now?" Bella asked, exhausted, her voice barely above a whisper. Tammy, her expression grave but determined, met Bella's eyes. "I'll dig deeper into this. I'll consult with some colleagues and make sure we're not overlooking anything. But don't worry, Bella. I'm here with you every step of the way." That night, Bella returned home with Emma, emotionally drained and unsure of how to face what lay ahead. As they reached the front door, Emma looked up at her mother with wide, worried eyes. "Mum, what's going on? Why are you so sad?" Emma's voice was soft, innocent, still untouched by the full horror of what had happened. Bella forced a smile, though her heart was heavy with fear and confusion. She gently stroked Emma's hair, trying to soothe both of their anxieties. "It's nothing, sweetheart. I'm just a little tired, that's all. Everything's going to be okay." Emma seemed to accept that answer, at least for the moment, and didn't press any further. But Bella couldn't escape the questions that swirled in her mind. The unknown haunted her, and the uncertainty followed her like a shadow, clinging to every quiet moment of the night. There had to be an explanation, something that would make sense of this nightmare, but no matter how hard she tried, Bella couldn't find it. A few days passed, and Emma slowly returned to her old self. She played in the yard with Alex, laughing like she used to, the innocence of her youth masking the trauma she had endured. Bella, however, could not move on so easily. The unease gnawed at her. Max was still tied up in the backyard, isolated from the family. Bella couldn't bear to take any more chances. The idea of letting him roam free again terrified her. "Mom, please," Emma begged her every day, tears welling in her eyes. "Let him go. He won't hurt me. I miss him." Emma had been glued to the television, watching programs about pregnancy and endlessly scrolling through the internet. She'd been searching for answers, trying to piece together the puzzle of what was happening to her body. One evening she finally turned to her mother, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, am I pregnant?" Bella's heart shattered at that moment. She had been dreading this conversation, knowing she couldn't keep the truth from her daughter any longer. With tears streaming down her face, she wrapped Emma in a tight embrace. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You are." They cried together, clinging to each other as though their shared grief could somehow make the pain less unbearable. Bella promised her daughter that she would never leave her side, that they would get through this together. But Emma, devastated, seemed to sink deeper into her own darkness. As the days passed, Emma, now 4 months pregnant, withdrew further into herself. She barely ate, didn't want to watch TV, and showed no interest in the things that once brought her joy. Painting, laughing, playing, all the little things they used to do together felt like distant memories. Bella's heart ached more with each passing day, watching her daughter slip into a deeper depression. "I have to do something," she whispered to herself in desperation. Maybe, just maybe, seeing Alex, Emma's best friend, might help. If I talk to Alex and explain the situation, maybe she can visit without telling anyone about the pregnancy, Bella thought, clinging to that fragile hope. She shared the idea with Emma, expecting at least a flicker of excitement. But Emma's response was a shock. "I don't want to see Alex," she snapped, her voice sharp and raw. "I only want to see Max." Bella felt a deep pang of worry. This wasn't normal. Her daughter had never shut out the world like this before. Concerned, she called Dr. Tammy to explain the situation. "Tammy, Emma refuses to see anyone. All she wants is the dog." On the other end of the line, Tammy's voice grew serious. "Bella, that's not good. This is turning into a psychological issue. You need to keep Emma and Max apart, no matter what." Despite Tammy's warning, Bella felt she had to tell Alex's family the truth. She went to their house, her words catching in her throat, tears already threatening to spill as she broke the news. Emma's pregnant. That's why she hasn't been out, why she hasn't wanted to see anyone. Alex's mother stood in stunned silence, and when she finally spoke, her voice trembled with disbelief. "But who's the father?" Bella shook her head, her voice cracking. "We don't know. Not yet." The weight of it all was too much, and Bella broke down. Both Alex and her mother embraced her, trying to offer comfort. "Don't worry, Bella. We won't tell a soul. We're here for you," Alex's mother promised gently. Later that day, Alex offered to visit Emma, hoping to lift her spirits. Bella, feeling a flicker of hope, thanked her, her heart heavy with a mix of gratitude and worry. Back home, Bella knocked softly on Emma's door. "Sweetheart," she said quietly, I have a surprise for you. Someone's here to see you." Emma's eyes brightened for the first time in days. "Max?" she asked eagerly, jumping out of bed with a glimmer of excitement. But when she opened the door and saw Alex standing there instead, her face fell immediately. Without a word, she slammed the door shut and stormed back to her bed. "I don't want to see anyone, just Max!" Emma screamed from her room, her voice filled with frustration and pain. Bella, crushed and unsure of what to do, apologized softly to Alex. But Alex, understanding, smiled sadly. "Don't worry, Mrs. Bella. I know she's going through a lot." As Alex walked home, Bella stood by the window, watching her go. Max, tied up in the backyard as always, started barking at Alex as she passed by. She paused for a moment, looking straight into the dog's eyes, then suddenly bolted toward her house, clearly rattled by something. Bella saw it all, and something inside her snapped. Fueled by a surge of anger, she rushed downstairs, storming into the yard. Her rage consumed her as she faced Max. "Shut up! This is all your fault!" she yelled, her voice trembling with fury. Max stared back at her, his big, innocent eyes full of confusion. He didn't stop barking until Alex was out of sight. Only then did he fall silent, leaving Bella standing there, her heart pounding with frustration. Weeks passed, and the day for another ultrasound arrived. Bella took Emma to Tammy's clinic, where Tammy suggested they do a DNA test on the baby. This procedure, called an amniocentesis, would allow them to extract amniotic fluid and analyze the fetus's DNA, confirming whether it was entirely human. For Bella, the days felt like an eternity, filled with fear and uncertainty about what they would discover next. The ultrasound revealed exactly what Tammy had suspected. The little one seemed to be healthy, with no visible signs of deformities. But the doctor, always cautious, gave Bella a warning. Everything points to the baby being human, but there could still be genetic or cognitive mutations that won't show on an ultrasound. The DNA test will give us a definitive answer. Bella felt a brief wave of relief wash over her. It seemed like Max wasn't responsible for the pregnancy after all, but that relief was quickly replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. If it wasn't Max, then who had gotten her daughter pregnant? That thought haunted her every waking moment. Mother and daughter returned home in a heavy silence. Bella's mind raced, obsessing over the DNA results and what they might confirm or deny. Her worst fears clung to her, refusing to let go. Emma, on the other hand, had grown quieter by the day, retreating further into herself, sinking into a deep depression. She barely spoke, barely moved. The lively spark that once defined her seemed to have flickered out. Once they were back home, Bella, her eyes still puffy from crying, couldn't bear the weight of her worry any longer. She approached Emma, her heart aching, and pleaded with her. "Sweetheart, please, tell me what's going on. If it wasn't Max, then who? Who did this to you?" Her voice cracked with desperation, hoping, no, praying that Emma would give her something, anything, to explain the nightmare they were living. Emma stayed silent, her gaze fixed on the floor, avoiding her mother's eyes. But after a long pause, sensing her mother's anguish, she finally spoke. Her voice was small, trembling, but there was a certain resolve in it. "Mom, I need time. I'll tell you the truth, I promise, just not right now." Though Bella's heart was still heavy with worry, she felt a glimmer of hope. It was the first time Emma had promised to speak, the first time she had hinted that there was a truth to be revealed. That was enough for now. Tears welled in Bella's eyes again, but this time they were mixed with relief. She threw her arms around Emma, holding her tightly, covering her daughter's face with kisses. "It doesn't matter what you have to tell me, sweetheart," Bella said softly, her voice tender as she stroked Emma's hair. I'll always be here for you, no matter what." Later that same day, Bella could barely contain her excitement. For the first time in weeks, the mystery that had been consuming her would soon have an answer. She reached for the phone and called Tammy, eager to share the news. "Tammy, Emma just promised me she'll tell me the truth soon." Bella's voice was filled with an enthusiasm that Tammy hadn't heard in a while. "That's wonderful news, Bella. I'm so happy for you both," Tammy replied warmly. "We'll wait together. Soon enough, we'll solve this mystery once and for all." After hanging up, Bella decided to visit her neighbor's house. She found them sitting on the couch, watching TV, Alex and her mother. With a smile of relief, Bella sat down beside them, eager to share the news. "Emma promised me she's going to tell me the truth soon. We'll finally know what happened." The neighbor and Alex smiled, seemingly happy for her, though Bella noticed a subtle expression on Alex's face, something she couldn't quite place. But at the moment, she was too relieved to dwell on it. That evening, a fierce storm hit the city. The wind howled outside, and rain lashed against the windows, accompanied by the rumbling of thunder. Lightning cut through the sky in bright, jagged flashes. As always, Bella tucked Emma into bed, kissing her gently on the forehead. "I love you, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay," she whispered, trying to sound reassuring as she turned off the light and quietly left the room. Bella decided to treat herself to a warm bath to unwind, letting the heat soothe her tired body. The sound of the storm raging outside seemed to make the bath even more peaceful, cocooning her in the stillness of the house. But just as she was beginning to relax, a sound shattered the calm. Max, tied up outside, had begun barking relentlessly. Her heart sank. Something wasn't right. "Not that dog again," Bella muttered irritably under her breath. She hastily threw on a robe and stormed out to the backyard. There was Max, straining against his chain, barking with a kind of desperation she'd never seen before. The pit bull seemed frantic, pulling at the leash as if something was deeply unsettling him. "Shut up already!" she yelled, her patience fraying. "You're driving me crazy!" With an angry glare, she spun around, stomping back inside the house. But something inside her snapped. She had had enough. Her mind made up. Bella dressed quickly, her hands trembling slightly as she grabbed the car keys with a newfound resolve. She headed back out, her movements sharp and purposeful. Without hesitation, she unhooked Max from the chain and dragged him to the car. He resisted a little, as if sensing what was about to happen, but Bella wouldn't be swayed. She shoved him into the back seat and drove directly to the animal shelter. When they arrived, she walked up to the front desk with cold determination. "Put him down," she said, her voice steady, leaving no room for questions. The shelter worker blinked, clearly startled by the directness, but complied. Max was led into a small holding cell where in just a few minutes he would be given the lethal injection that would end his life. Bella didn't stick around. She drove back home, her mind blank, not wanting to dwell on the decision she'd just made. There was no room for regret. As she stepped back into the house, the storm outside raged on, wind howling and rain pounding against the windows. She sank into the warmth of her bathtub, the water swirling around her as she tried to relax, letting the weight of the day wash away. But even in the soothing water, her thoughts were jagged, her body heavy with exhaustion. Meanwhile, back at the shelter, Max lay still in his small cage, staring out into the void as if resigned to his fate. He didn't move, his eyes fixed on some distant point. The shelter worker, now holding the prepared injection, approached the cage slowly, half expecting the dog to have already given up. "What's the matter, boy?" the man mumbled under his breath as he opened the cell door. But just as the door swung open, Max sprang to life. He bolted from the cage, moving with a speed and intensity that caught the worker completely off guard. Max had been pretending all along. He slipped through the wet, storm-drenched night, his paws slipping on the soaked ground. But he kept running. For a brief moment he seemed lost, confused by the darkness and the storm swirling around him. But then something ignited in him. His ears perked up, and he recognized the familiar streets. The path home. Max ran even faster, his legs carrying him with a determined purpose, cutting through the rain like it didn't even matter. Back at the house, Bella had drifted off, lulled into sleep by the storm and the weight of everything that had happened that day. But she wasn't out for long. Half an hour later, her rest was abruptly shattered by the sound of terrified screams echoing through the house. She jolted awake, confused, scrambling out of the tub as she frantically threw her robe back on. "Emma!" she shouted, panic rising in her chest. The cries were coming from Emma's room. Bella rushed up the stairs as fast as her legs could carry her, her heart slamming in her chest. But when she reached the door, it wouldn't budge. It was locked. From the other side, Emma's voice screamed out in terror, and Bella's blood ran cold when she heard something else. Barking. Max. "That's impossible," she gasped, fear gripping her. "I got rid of that dog." How was he back? How could he possibly have returned? Overcome with rage and fear, Bella slammed her fists against the door, each hit harder than the last. The adrenaline coursing through her body made her stronger than she had ever felt. With one final, desperate push, the door gave way, bursting open under the force. The scene inside was utter chaos. The room was dim, only faintly illuminated by the soft glow of the nightlight, while the storm outside lit up the night with flashes of lightning. Emma was huddled on the bed, crying out in fear. Max was darting around the room, barking furiously, his movements erratic as though he were out of his mind. But what froze Bella in place was the sight of Alex, soaking wet, fighting with the dog in a frantic struggle, illuminated by the lightning flashes that bathed the room in brief, eerie light. "Alex, what are you doing here?" Bella's voice was a mixture of shock and confusion, her mind struggling to make sense of the scene before her. "Help me!" Alex shouted, wrestling with Max. "I heard him barking from my house. I came to save Emma. I climbed up the vines to her window." "He wants to bite me." Bella, in a state of shock, struggled to comprehend how Alex had gotten there in the middle of the storm without her noticing. But when she saw her daughter and Alex in danger, there was no time to think. Her instincts took over. She lunged at Max, her body fueled by a potent mixture of fear and fury. "I'll kill you!" she screamed, grabbing the dog by the neck and tightening her grip with trembling hands. Max thrashed, trying to break free, but Bella's anger made her stronger than her fear. The room flickered with the violent flashes of lightning, casting long, ominous shadows as the struggle unfolded under the dim glow of the bedside lamp. Through the chaos, Emma's desperate voice cut through like a dagger. "Mom, stop, let him go. He's not to blame, I'll tell you everything." Bella, panting and disoriented, looked at her daughter, trying to make sense of the words. But she couldn't. She couldn't afford to take that chance to let the dog attack again. A few agonizing seconds later, Max stopped struggling. His body went limp, collapsing to the floor. Bella, drained of energy, barely caught her breath, thinking it was finally over. But then, out of nowhere, a sharp, searing pain shot through her head. Before she knew it, her body crumpled to the floor, half-conscious. She couldn't move, but her senses remained sharp. Her ears rang with Emma's terrified cries. "Alex, please don't hurt my mum. Just leave us alone," Alex's response was chilling. "I told you if you ever told your mum the truth, I'd kill both of you." Bella, lying helpless on the cold floor, felt her heart break with every word. She wanted to get up, to protect Emma, but her body wouldn't cooperate. Paralyzed by pain and fear, she could do nothing but watch in horror. Emma's voice trembled. "Alex, please. Please don't hurt her. I swear I won't tell anyone." "It's too late for that!" Alex screamed, her voice laced with rage. The room lit up as another bolt of lightning illuminated the scene, casting everything in an eerie, ghostly glow. Bella tried to force her limbs to move, but the agony kept her pinned down. Just when all hope seemed lost, something caught her eye. Max, the dog she thought was unconscious, began to stir. Slowly, but with renewed determination, he rose to his feet. Before anyone could react, Max launched himself at Alex with a raw, protective fury. "No! Get off me, you stupid dog!" Alex shrieked, struggling against Max's relentless attack. "I'll kill you too!" she screamed, fighting him with all her strength. The battle between Alex and Max was brutal, but the dog didn't back down. Driven by loyalty and the need to protect, Max clung to her, his growls filling the room. In desperation, Alex managed to free herself from his grip and bolted toward the window, clearly planning to escape. But the storm outside had transformed the ground into a slick, dangerous surface. As she attempted to flee, the wind and rain caught her off guard. Her feet slipped, and she plunged from the second-story window. The sound of her body hitting the ground below was sickening. Bella, still too weak to move, heard the impact. The silence that followed was deafening, interrupted only by the distant rumble of thunder. Emma rushed to her mother's side, helping her up with trembling hands. They clung to each other, shaking with fear and disbelief over what had just transpired. Max, though wounded and exhausted, stumbled over to them, his tail wagging weakly as he licked their faces. He had saved them, and in that moment, all three of them, Bella, Emma, and Max, found comfort in each other's presence, their bond stronger than ever. Bella, her head still throbbing, fumbled for her phone. She needed to call for help. Within minutes, the flashing lights of police cruisers lit up the street, drawing the attention of curious neighbors. Among them was Alex's mother. When she saw her daughter lying unconscious on the ground, she sprinted over, screaming in anguish. She cradled Alex's limp body, her sobs filling the night as Bella recounted the nightmarish events to the police. As the officers took down her statement, Bella's heart still raced, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. She looked over at Emma, her arms still wrapped protectively around her daughter. This was just the beginning. "Sweetheart, I need you to tell me the whole truth now," Bella pleaded, her voice soft but urgent. Emma, her face wet with tears, finally broke down, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Mom, Alex isn't like other girls. One day when we were taking a bath together, I noticed. She had male anatomy. She's actually a boy, not a girl. She begged me not to tell anyone. It was her secret." Bella's eyes widened in shock, unable to process the revelation. How had she not seen this? How had everything gone so wrong? Emma continued, her words shaky but determined to get the truth out. "Over time, Alex started asking me to experiment with our bodies. She wanted us to have a relationship. I tried to avoid it. But that night..." Emma's voice cracked, and she swallowed hard, the memory clearly tormenting her. "That night, she forced me. Max, he was sleeping under my bed, and when he heard me crying, he started barking. He wanted to protect me." Emma's tears flowed faster now, her words barely making it through her sobs. Alex panicked when she saw the blood and heard Max barking. "She threatened me, said if I told you she'd kill us both." That's why I never said anything, Mom. Bella felt her heart shatter. The weight of what her daughter had endured crushed her soul. She wrapped her arms around Emma, holding her tightly as they both cried. The puzzle pieces began to fit. Alex had tried to frame Max because she knew the truth would ruin her. The next day, the police continued their investigation. Alex, who had been unconscious, woke up and was interrogated. But the biggest revelation didn't come from her. It came from her mother. Between sobs, Alex's mother revealed that her child had always struggled with gender identity, choosing to live as a girl even though she was born a boy. She'd been treated like a girl in public, but her male instincts had surfaced, and Emma had become an easy target for her. When Alex realized Emma might tell her mother what had happened, she panicked. That stormy night, she had tried to break into Emma's room to silence her. But Max, always the protector, had scared her away. When she realized Max was no longer in the house, Alex seized the opportunity to return, intending to end Emma's life and bury the secret for good. She hadn't counted on Max coming back to save Emma a second time. Alex was sent to a psychiatric facility for troubled teens, while Bella and Emma tried to pick up the shattered pieces of their lives. Dr. Tammy, who had been a constant source of support, felt a wave of relief wash over her as the truth finally surfaced. She began visiting Bella regularly, helping the family recover from the trauma. Max, once a source of suspicion and fear, was now a hero in their eyes. Emma adored him even more, and Bella's heart softened toward the dog that had protected her daughter in the darkest moment of their lives. But the calm didn't last long. One night, Emma woke up with a sharp pain in her stomach. Panic surged through her as she noticed a red stain spreading across her bedsheets. "Mom! Mom!" she screamed, her voice filled with terror. Bella rushed into her room, her heart pounding as she took in the sight of her daughter in pain. Without hesitation, she scooped Emma up and rushed her to Tammy's clinic. Tammy acted quickly, stabilizing Emma and trying to keep Bella calm. But after running a few tests, Tammy pulled Bella aside, her face solemn. "Bella, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice steady but filled with empathy. "Emma's body couldn't handle the pregnancy any longer. She's lost the baby." Bella felt her throat tighten, a knot forming in her chest. As much as the loss hurt, a part of her knew that maybe, just maybe, it was for the best. It was too much for Emma's fragile body and spirit to bear. She returned to Emma's side, seeing the unspoken question in her daughter's tear-filled eyes. "Honey, the baby, it's gone," Bella whispered gently, pulling Emma into a tight embrace. They held each other, crying softly, the weight of all they had been through too much to bear in silence. Emma, though deeply affected by the loss, began to feel a small sense of relief. It had been a long, agonizing road, but at last they were finding their way out of the shadows that had loomed over them for so long. The house, once heavy with the weight of grief and fear, now hummed with the quiet sounds of healing. Bella felt it too. She would catch herself sometimes, standing in the kitchen or folding laundry, remembering the dark days, the endless crying, the sleepless nights, the relentless questions about how things had gone so horribly wrong. But now, when those thoughts surfaced, they didn't have the same crushing power they once had. Instead, they seemed like distant echoes, fading as time pulled her and Emma forward. It hadn't been easy. Each day had been a small step towards something better, a slow rebuilding of trust, of hope. There were moments when it felt like they might never escape the darkness that had settled over their lives. But now, looking at Emma, Bella knew they had made it through. The nightmares were fewer, the tears less frequent, And Max, faithful, loyal Max, had become more than just a protector. He had become a symbol of resilience. "Mom, look!" Emma's voice pulled Bella from her thoughts. She glanced up to see her daughter standing at the door, holding up a freshly painted picture, her face beaming with pride. It was simple, a bright sun shining over a field of flowers, but it was beautiful in its simplicity, so full of life and color. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Bella said, her voice warm with pride. Emma's smile stretched even wider, and she dashed back to the table to continue painting, her brush dancing across the paper with the energy of a child who had reclaimed her joy. As Bella watched her, she couldn't help but feel a swell of gratitude. For so long, Emma had been lost in her pain, trapped in the aftermath of what had happened. But now, here she was, laughing, painting, living. It wasn't just that she had survived, it was that she had found a way to thrive, even after everything. Max lay at Emma's feet, his head resting on his paws, his eyes lazily following her movements, as if he, too, felt the peace that had settled over their home. The bond between Emma and Max had only deepened with time. He had been there for her in the worst of it, and now, in these quieter days, he remained by her side, a constant, steady presence. The change hadn't been immediate. For weeks, Emma had been quiet, withdrawn, struggling to process the loss of the baby, the betrayal, the fear. Bella had worried, endlessly so, that her daughter might never come back to her fully, that the Emma she had known and loved before, all of this would be lost forever. But slowly, day by day, Emma had started to return. First, it was the little things, smiling at Max, helping Bella with dinner, showing interest in her schoolwork. Bella watched with a mix of pride and cautious optimism, knowing that the scars of what they had been through might never fully fade, but seeing, at last, that they were no longer holding Emma back. The mornings grew warmer, the days longer, and their home filled with light. Bella found herself looking forward to the future again, something she hadn't been able to do for what felt like years. Emma's laughter filled the house more often now, and Max, always at her side, wagged his tail happily whenever she called his name. One afternoon, as they sat together on the porch, the sun dipping low in the sky, Emma turned to her mother and smiled. "Everything's going to be okay now, isn't it, Mom?" Bella reached over, squeezing her daughter's hand gently. "Yes, honey. Everything's going to be okay." And for the first time in a long time, Bella truly believed it. They had weathered the storm, and though the road ahead would still have its bumps, they were walking it together, stronger than ever. Peace, at last, had come. Wow, what a journey, right? Bella and Emma's story really shows us the power of resilience, love, and how even in the darkest moments, we can find light again. Max, their loyal protector, was such an unexpected hero, and seeing Emma reclaim her happiness was just so heartwarming. It's a reminder that no matter how tough things get, with the right support and time, we can heal. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this emotional ride. If this story moved you, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What part of Bella and Emma's story resonated with you the most? I'd love to hear what you think. And as always, take care, stay strong, and remember there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Until next time, see you in the next video.